In the past, I've mentioned to you guys how I started baking because I went vegan and there was nothing but dry cake to eat. And that's true. However, there is a secondary reason why I started baking, and that is because of my anxiety and panic attacks. When I first started baking, I was having several panic attacks a day, and baking was one of the things that helped me get a lot better. And that's what I'm talking about today in this video. If that's something you're struggling with anxiety and panic attacks, and you're trying to find a way to make it better, well, there's a whole lot of videos out there for it. I'm just sharing my personal story of how baking helped mine. So if this is something you can relate to, go ahead and give this video a like and keep watching. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if baking is something you're into, because I'm here weekly with new videos with recipes, tips, and hacks on vegan baking that I think you might enjoy. So let's get to today's video. But if we're talking about anxiety and panic attacks, first we need to take a little road trip. So today I can drive on this bridge with no problem, and I look out and I can admire the view and just think about how beautiful it is. But for a very long time, I could not drive past this bridge. It started in 2012. I used to work a job that I really, really hated, where I was bullied, and it was just a really awful situation on the Tampa side of the bridge. And this is the bridge that connects St. Pete to Tampa. And I would have to cross this bridge every single day to get to that job that I absolutely hated. And I would just dread it. I would completely dread it. And then one day, when I was driving back from work, all of a sudden I started having a panic attack. And I had no idea what a panic attack was before then. All I knew was that I just had this horrible tunnel vision. And I just started having these racing, intrusive thoughts that I would get in an accident and I would just drive off the bridge. And after that, every single time I tried to cross this bridge, those racing thoughts would start again. And it got to a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. The idea of getting in the car was too much. So once I got diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, this was something completely new to me. I knew nothing about it. And so, being the type A, slightly neurotic person that I am, I started doing all the research that I could. I tried to find out as much as I could about something that I had been diagnosed with. And I started going to therapy, and that's where I learned about the importance of being in the moment. And I had to start to learn ways to be in the moment instead of worrying about what's next or what came before. So I started doing activities like puzzling and crafting because that required my attention and that made me stay in the moment. However, my thoughts still wandered. I found myself puzzling, but also in the back of my mind, having those worries still brewing in there. And then at that time, I had started baking because, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I couldn't find any decent vegan things to eat except dry cake, and that wasn't working for me. So while all of this was going on, I was also trying to start to bake. And then I found out one day as I was baking that I had been completely in the moment. I hadn't even meant to, I just was. Because I was so incredibly bad at baking that it required my full attention. So I needed to be completely in the moment to read the recipe and know what I had to do. I had to be completely in the moment to make sure that I put the ingredients correctly in the bowl and that I knew what came next, because I was so freaking clueless that I couldn't do that while another part of my brain was doing something else. So that's when I realized that baking really helped me stay in the moment and focus at the task at hand. And that goes hand in hand with another way that baking helped me with my anxiety and panic attacks, and that is it gave me purpose. So I'm an Enneagram 1. I like doing things well. So getting good at baking became a project for me. And when I have a project, I'm on fire. Give me something to master and to learn more about, and I'm in my zone. So how can I make these cookies better? How can I make this cake prettier? That became a challenge for me to achieve. It gave me purpose and it gave me something to focus on. And that really gave my brain kind of like a channel to focus all that energy on. And that really helped tremendously. And back then, I was just baking for myself. This was just a personal project. The bakery didn't come until years later. And I think that's something important to note here. This did not happen overnight, okay? It's not like I started baking and all of a sudden I got better. Like, that is not what happened. It took years of therapy, sometimes going on medication for a while, and I am in no way, shape, or form
qualified to give advice on whether medication is right for you or not. You have to talk to your own doctor and figure that out on your own. But for me, it was right to go on medication for a while, learning different skills and different mechanisms and different ways to deal with my anxiety, baking being one of those skills and ways to do that. So baking was one of those tools that I used and that I learned to use to manage my stress, because anxiety is not something you cure, it's something you manage. I know that I'm always going to be dealing with this. I'm just prone to be more of an anxious person. So now I need to learn ways to cope with that and manage that throughout my life. And I know baking was one of those things. And you might have noticed that I used past tense there. That's because, well, I took this hobby and this thing that I got really good at, and then I turned it into my life. Like, I own a bakery, which is awesome. I do something that I absolutely love for a living. However, now baking is not really a form of stress relief. Sometimes it can be a stressor. If something doesn't come out right, it's not just, oh, bummer, it didn't come out right. It's like, I have orders that I need to fill. I have wholesalers that are waiting for their order. This needs to be on time. This needs to be delivered. I have 1,000 other things when you own a business that you need to worry about and that you need to focus on. So baking all of a sudden went from being a hobby and something that gave me stress relief to sometimes causing me a whole lot of stress. That being said, even when I have to pull all-nighters and I find myself folding croissant dough at 4 a.m., I realize that I'm kind of in the zone. When I used to do cake, I found myself like putting buttercream on the 20th cake of the week and really finding myself just completely lost in that motion. It just made me focus on decorating this one cake. All that existed to me was that one cake that I needed to decorate, and it brought me so much joy. Whenever I talk to a customer and they tell me how much they love my stuff, it brings me that rush of endorphins. So it is still something that I love and that I really care about and that really helps me stay in the zone. However, it can also at the same time bring me a lot of stress when I'm running a business around it. And so the final thing that I have to say about baking helping with anxiety and panic attacks is that if you're going to try that route, I would say start with easy recipes. So I have this whole video over here about beginner vegan baking recipes. That's a great way to start because these are like tried and true recipes that will really set you up for success, because you don't want to cause stress by trying to do something and then it comes out disgusting, or it doesn't come out so well, and then it's like one more thing to add to the list of things that you didn't succeed at. You know what I mean? Like, you want to set yourself up for success. You want this to be fun so you can be focused on the task at hand, and then at the end have this wonderful product that you can enjoy and be proud of. Here on the channel, I've mentioned so many times how that's so important, especially when you're getting started with vegan baking, is to really get those wins in the beginning so you build up your confidence, and then you can work your way up to something more complicated or something that you want to veganize that you have, you know, a normal recipe for down the road. But really start with something super easy so you're setting yourself up for success. And if vegan baking is something that you're interested in and you're trying to get good at, I do have a free guide for successful vegan baking with tips that I wish somebody had given me when I was just getting started. You can download that completely free. I'll put the link in the description below. You can just go in there, put in your email address, it gets delivered straight to your inbox. Now, if anxiety and panic attacks are something that you're dealing with, first of all, I want to say you are not alone, okay? A lot of people go through this and they may not talk about it. You're not crazy, you're not alone, and it gets better. Do the journaling, do the baking, do the meditating, go to therapy. These are all the things that I did and still do to this day to manage my anxiety and panic attacks, which, yeah, every once in a while I still have, but it did get so much better than it was in the beginning. And if you're watching and baking has helped you with your anxiety, please share your story in the comments below if you're comfortable. I'm sure everyone who landed on this video and sees that story in there will get encouraged, and it will help them along their journey. I will see you guys here next week. Until then, stay curious.